Spider-Man. The first few comics I read was that. And then from there's an issue Spectacular where the X-Men were guest stars. And that blew my mind as an 11-year-old that they shared the same world, you know? And so from there, I started collecting like 1 or 2 X-Men titles. And then I think from like in 1993, they did, what was it? The Fatal Attraction story, the one with all the holograms on the covers. And that kind of brought me to the wider world of X-Men. And so, you know, I just kind of like slowly grew into Marvel over a few years. And then I think in the very late 90s, I started to branch out a little bit, but it was more into like Image and stuff. Like I didn't even really start reading DC at that point, you know? But I mean, I've just kept picking up new stuff and reading more and more stuff over the years. And then from the art side, I really started to collect in 2014. So it's been 10 years now. And I started predominantly with commissions. But nowadays I get probably just as much published art, if not slightly more than I do commissions. So, you know, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. What a journey.
Yeah.
And do you want to give a little short reason as to why you are Stingray?
Well, Stingray is the focus of my art collecting, with the commissions in particular. He's a character that I really like. He's a character that I have a personal connection with a little bit because his secret identity is Dr. Walter Newell, and that's my first name. So, you know, when I found that out about 22-ish years ago, I thought that was really cool. And I kind of just adopted Stingray as a name for stuff on the internet. You know, it was like, you know, my screen name for almost everything. And, you know, like that's my nickname on YouTube. And as I started getting onto the comic art fan stuff, the Comic Art Live channel, you know, people started asking like, who's the Stingray guy, you know? So that's how I kind of got known over there. But I collect a lot of Stingray art. I've got about 22 commissions at this point, with another one coming in November. I've already got 2 scheduled for pickup at OAX in January. I'm hoping to make it 3 or 4. And I actually, this year, I acquired my first 3 Stingray published pages, including that one from Kreese.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Congrats. I think similar to our friend Rob, who has a Cosmic Ghost Rider fetish. You definitely have the Stingray fetish. You're on it. You're on it.
Yeah, man.
And while we're at it, happy birthday, Southern Comic Geek.
Oh, happy birthday.
And Cora, I do speak Cantonese. Ho. So real quick too. Okay, so obviously your background is very different. Not sure if you were ever even exposed to Valiant or only through like the conversation you overheard from Jason and I. But what sparked your ear? Like, what got you to, you know, say, hey guys, like where did I start?
Well, so I've always been aware of Valiant. I remember seeing at least a few of the books at the time, you know, when they were coming out. I see them, you know, I remember going digging for back issues when I was still more into that, you know, when I was a little younger than now, always seeing them, you know, and I didn't really know much about it. I knew it wasn't Marvel or DC, you know, it wasn't even like Image or whatever. So I didn't really know where it fit into the comic landscape, I guess, you know. And it's funny because like I kind of realized in the last couple of years that, you know, I started reading comics in 92, but I missed so much. Like I didn't know that Image was like forming at that time frame, you know, like my whole world was the tiny little corner of Marvel for the longest time. And I slowly kind of started to branch out, you know. So I feel like I missed a lot of stuff. Like I didn't read any of the early Image books. I don't have like a Spawn #1 like everybody does, because I missed that book, you know. I remember one time my best friend at the time, we were like 12 years old. His older sister had a boyfriend that had the first like handful of issues of Spawn, and he let us read them. And it was like this big deal because, you know, like, oh, maybe we weren't quite old enough, but he was the cool older sister's boyfriend or whatever, and so he let us like go through them, but he made sure like wash your hands first, don't ding them up, you know, that kind of thing. And but so, you know, I like to go back and read some of that older stuff that I missed, you know, like maybe about 5 years ago I just got into Usagi Yojimbo for the first time, which is one of the best things I've ever read, you know, like it's just fantastic. And now I've got almost all of the the hardcover, the saga collections they call them. And I love it, and it's great. A couple of years ago at Baltimore, I met Richard and Wendy Peeney, and I got the first volume of ElfQuest direct from them, and that was fantastic, you know. And that's 40 years old now. Another thing that I'm in the middle of reading right now is Starman, you know, the James Robinson and Tony Harris book from the 90s. I could have read that when it was coming out, but I didn't. I didn't read anything DC at the time, and I had no idea, you know. So just going back and find some of the not necessarily hidden gems, but just some of the things that I missed from when I was younger is kind of fun, you know. And so seeing the excitement that the two of you had, the enthusiasm for the Valiant stuff was kind of cool. And I'm, you know, tell me about it. And you did.
Yo, what's up, number one Marvel fan? Happy Halloween, Cora and Brian Wells. Jason,
a merry birthday to you as well, Brian. Well, you know, no, the thing about it is there's so much out there, right? And, you know, a lot of people, I think, you know, find themselves either overwhelmed about the amount of stuff that's out there and trying to find that little niche, you know, because some people like science fiction, some people like this or that or the other. And to find it outside of the big two is a little fun. You mentioned earlier continuity. And so that's one of the things when Valiant was at its best, whether the VH1 or what we refer to as VE1, you know, is continuity tight, right? And having that connectivity between all of the various properties, which you found in Shadowman a little bit. Shadowman's a little bit different title, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's always fun to go back and read that stuff that we missed when we were younger, because for the people that were hanging out at the comic book shop, or the few people that whispered to each other at school that it was okay to read comics, most everybody was reading the same thing. And so it's fun to venture outside that.
For sure.
Do you remember what you saw on the stands, Stingray, in the 1993? Like, if you were to like kind of project visually what you remember Valiant wise, do you remember like which covers? I'm just curious. Like, what,
not exactly. Like, you know, I went back and watched the first episode that you guys did of this, and you know, you had a stack of books on there, Carl, and a lot of those covers, some of them I was like, I kind of remember that, I think, you know, but I couldn't give you like specific issues or anything.
How about Deathmate? Do you remember Deathmate when the crossover happened?
I saw that one. That was one of the ones you had on the first episode, and I didn't like the title, like the way it looked, the lettering, you know, the icon. It looked kind of vaguely familiar, but I don't remember the name really.
Yeah, was that around the time, like 92, 93, Jason? Do you remember?
No, that's around that time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I remember some Magnus robot fighter. I think some Turok. I kind of vaguely knew who Solar was. I knew the red costume with the radioactive thing on the chest.
Yeah.
I don't know when or where, but you know, I knew the name Archer and Armstrong. So part of it I think might be because I read Quantum and Woody in the late 90s, which was during the Acclaim period, right? I think. Yeah. Okay. So when they rebooted, give me 1 sec, guys. My camera went out.
Yep.
Hold on.
You're frozen.
I'll keep talking though. So when they restarted, there we go. Okay. So when they rebooted, I guess Quantum and Woody as part of Valiant a few years later, I tried to read that, and I think there was like a local comic show that I go to every year, and I think that Valiant was there. They had a booth one year in like 2017, 2018 maybe, and they gave me a bunch of like free books to read, like, but it was all the rebooted stuff, the modern stuff, and I'll be honest, none of it really made me want to read it, you know. But I tried reading the Quantum and Woody book that they put out, but I didn't. It just wasn't the same for me, you know, as the older book.
Gosh, I never read Quantum and Woody. Like, what was Quantum and Woody about?
So Quantum and Woody was written by Christopher Priest,
Mhm.
who is phenomenal, and he is actually a great comedic writer. Like, he does funny very well. If you ever read his Black Panther back in the day at Marvel, it was fantastic. So Quantum and Woody were a pair of superheroes who they were brothers. They were adopted brothers. Woody was the white one, Quantum was the black one, and Woody was adopted into Quantum's family. And so they got hit by some kind of radioactive stuff or whatever. There was a science accident, right? And yes, yeah, definitely, he was amazing.
Priest, yeah.
So they got to this point where they had these like armbands, and they had to bang them together once every 24 hours, or their bodies would literally dissipate into atoms. And so it made the sound effect clang. And so they would talk about how every 24 hours they have to clang. So they hated each other. They were trying to move away from each other, like relocate, but now they have to be together at least once every 24 hours. And then they just decided to become superheroes with these new quantum powers that they had. And they became superheroes, and they had a goat named Vincent Van Gogh.
That's wild.
Yeah. Well, to me, Quantum and Woody was like, everybody kind of plays their part in the Valiant universe. Like you have, like in VH1, you have Solar, who's got the godlike powers. You have, the more grounded people. You have the mutants, the Harbinger kids, that type of thing. So you had this buddy pairing, this odd couple pairing with Archer and Armstrong. That, like, when they came out with Quantum and Woody, I'm like, you got that with Archer and Armstrong. I just never, I never was a huge fan of Quantum and Woody. But it's so the one guy is like straight laced and the other one's like loosey goosey. And so it's like an odd couple pairing.
Yeah.
That's Archer Armstrong though. Like, why did you need a Quantum and Woody? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that was my thought, but they didn't tell me and ask me. So
they should have.
So to give you an idea of like what you're saying, the straight laced and the goofy guy, Woody was like, we need superhero names. We have to come up with cool superhero names. Like, that's just how it works, right? It's cool. So Quantum was like, I don't want to do that. That's stupid. Superheroes are dumb. But he's like, okay, finally he gave in. He's like, all right, I'll call myself Quantum. And Woody was just like, I'll call myself Woody.
That's funny. It's kind of like, it's interesting because I totally missed the whole Quantum Woody. Was that a claim or was that
it was a claim
or the takeover kind of thing? Okay, got it. It was an evolution.
And it's funny because I don't even remember how I got into that one. I think it might have been because I recognized Priest's name from Black Panther, but other than that, I don't know, because I don't think I read any other Acclaim books.
Now that's interesting of Quantum Woody because I think there was that was an era that I pretty much checked out already, but the era that I'm actually very familiar with is number one Marvel fans kind of narrative as a shopkeeper or a seller, as a retailer. He mentioned that when it hit, not a lot of people ordered, and then Wizard really pumped it up. I remember this. Like, I remember kind of getting into it more for Wizards, and then not getting Harbinger #1, and I think even Rye #1 or #2 till way later because they were just so hard to find. Like, did you guys remember that?
Yeah, they were too expensive because Wizard had pushed them up.
Yeah.
So, it's funny that you mentioned that because, I wasn't reading the books, obviously, but I was reading Wizard magazine, and you know how they used to do the trading card inserts?
Yeah.
I want to say that there was at least one or two Valiant ones, and I probably still have them somewhere now that I think about it.
Oh yeah, there's some Valiant issues, like Valiant solely on Valiant comics that Wizard done.
Okay.
But yeah, there's several card inserts.
Okay, Brian Wells is saying that Priest went from Quantum Woody to Black Panther, not the other way around. So that's not why I read it.
Well, and the other thing with Christopher Priest is, he used to go by a different name, right?
Jim Owsley.
Yeah, so he changed his name, which is funny because the last issue of Power Man Iron Fist he wrote, which so kind of tells me, all right, he's used to this good cop, bad cop thing dynamic.
Yeah, yeah.
And so anyway, he signed it by his old name, not by Christopher Priest.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, he used to do editorial at Marvel too, right?
Yeah, he did some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Brian's bringing up that so Sal Valletta, I believe, was the artist on that Black Panther.
Later on, yeah, because I think Texera did a few issues, and then they moved to Sal Velluto, I think.
Yeah, and he did some. I know he did some of the Bloodshot in VH too.
So, real quick, can I ask you guys? Can you tell me what VH1 and VE1 is? What that means? What the difference is?
Jason would know way better.
VH1. VH is like as in Valiant Heroes. So VH1 is the OG stuff, right?
Okay.
So the Acclaim reboot, because Acclaim wanted to make proper, they felt like the properties were too convoluted to sell video games. So they wanted to reboot their origins or whatever. So they reboot everything. That's VH2. So that's like the second iteration of those characters. Because if you ever read that Acclaim stuff, like the Bloodshot you see there is much different than the Bloodshot. His name's even different. So, and then when Dinesh comes along, it's VE1. So, so he kind of rebooted and actually kind of took a little bit from each universe and they melded it kind of together.
Okay.
In the new one.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I just did like a quick search, and if you were to kind of, it brings you right to the Valiant forums, basically, where they do talk about these things. He kind of breaks down the VH1.
Oh, wow.
VH1 right here. VH1, 1991 and 96. So this is pretty much the only era I'm familiar with. VH2, as kind of Jason just broke down, was Acclaim. Those 3 years I totally missed. VEI is Dinesh, right? His crew, and then 5 years of DMG, which I don't know if much happened or if anyone, really dove into that. And then more recently,
Alien.
Yeah, Alien has been the one just really trying to revive things, and I think they had something going good, and then the woman kind of in charge now recently just left. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there.
Yeah, so we'll see how that turns out now that she's not trying to pump the gas there, but yeah, so the DMG stuff, I mean, it's really just spinning their wheels, kind of rehashing some of the same old tropes, not really no stories that you go, man, that was a good story type of a deal. So.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. But with that said, we want to try this new format. So Mr. Stingray is going to be a regular here because he's going to be our new eyes for you new readers of Valiant. It's come up so often now, even just like since Jason has been streaming. I don't know, Jason, if you've been getting hit up as well. I've had folks go, hey, like, I'm a new reader. Where should I start? This is kind of cool what you guys are doing. We should get more people in. And so, Stingray, you're going to be our guy. You're going to be our regular appearance who's going to dive into different, titles within the Valiant universe.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, we're going to start with VH1. And VH1, not sure why, but you started with one particular title. I don't know if one of us told you or you just decided to just dive into it.
Well,
so share of our listeners what that title was and why.
Yeah, well, I decided to start with Shadowman. I was going to try to start with Archer and Armstrong because, Carl, you and I talked about that one, and you said you thought that one was the most fun, and reading some of the synopses of the books, I kind of agreed with you, and so I was going to start there. And I do have an Archer and Armstrong omnibus coming to me soon. I'm waiting for a friend of mine to send it to me. But in the meantime, I found some of those same omnibuses were free through Amazon if you had the Comixology monthly subscription, and I do. So they had Shadowman, Exo Manowar, and Ninjak, I think, were the three that they had on there for free. And of those three, I just decided to go with Shadowman because it sounded really interesting to me. The supernatural element, I think, is what drew me into that one.
Yeah, Jason, do you feel like there's a reason why new readers would gravitate to Shadowman? Because I can't recall who, but someone else also told me their first Valiant was Shadowman, and then
Well, Jeremiah last week might have
yes, you might mention it. Yeah, you did mention that. So why?
And I know,
If that's the case,
really, Shadow Man. If once you read it, of course, you know this. That there's it's like more of an anthology. A lot of the stories are kind of just standalone stories.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of, and then in my estimation, and everybody feel free to, disagree, but in my thought, he's more the standalone character of them. I mean, you'll have an occasional crossover, but a lot of the stuff he's dealing with is with, the bad guys and the necromancers and all that kind of stuff down in New Orleans. And so, so he's much more of the standalone character. Number one Marvel fan mentions in the Nintendo 64 game, there was a Shadow Man game that was the.
So I was kind of doing a little independent research while I was reading the book and seeing, how he was kind of connected to everything. And I did see that there's a video game, and it doesn't look anything like the character I read about.
That's right. He's the acclaimed version.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's really strange because for me, I didn't really read the acclaim version, but it's almost like it's taken over the Shadow Man, as a brand. This version, it's gotten way bigger than Jack Bonavase, which is the Shadow Man I know. So
that's the one I know too, Carl.
Yeah, that's the one you know too, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the newer stuff, like the pictures you're showing there, the newer stuff kind of harkens back to a lot of the OG stuff, but goes a lot more into expanding. And you mentioned this, I think, last week, and Dinesh had mentioned this to me when I saw him at Heroes Con. Basically Shadow Man was that unknown out there. And so that's kind of why they, departed from the original characters stuff. They added a lot of the extra stuff in there with this one. I liked it. I don't know which one I like better, this one or that one, but certainly better than the acclaimed version. I wasn't a huge fan of. So
there you go. Here's the version now. So one of the things that Stingray mentioned was that this first Shadow Man, they didn't have any kind of collected omnibus past issue 24. Do you know why, Jason? Why they didn't have that?
That makes sense to me. I mean, that's only halfway through, right?
Yeah. There's I think 43 issues in that first volume, and then the 0.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird because I don't know who put out this omnibus. I have it here in front of me. It's just called, Valiant Classic Omnibus, and there's a few of these that it's the same as the Archer and Armstrong one that I have coming. They all have volume 1s, but that's it. So they only collect maybe half the books.
Bring it up to the camera to show what the cover is.
I can. It's on a tablet, but I can try.
Okay.
It shows up.
Oh, yeah, that's
Frank Miller cover.
Yeah. When I saw that, I was like, "Is that Frank Miller?" And then I saw the FM in there. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome."
That's a part of the connecting cover for the first round of Unity. So.
Oh really? Okay.
Okay. That's so cool. I've asked Noah, what was the impression? Give us your general assessment as a fresh reader into the Valiant universe through Shadowman.
I felt like Shadowman was fun. I enjoyed it. I thought it was an entertaining book, but it was kind of I felt like it was all over the place, it was a little wonky, I think is what I told you originally, right? It felt like I noticed early on that, they switched artists every couple or a few issues, and they kind of bounced back and forth. And a lot of times the artist was also the writer, which I thought was really intriguing. So I wonder if I kind of started wondering, if the fact that they were jumping around on, who was writing the book from one issue to the next, or maybe they'd do 2 or 3 and then somebody else would do it, if that affected the continuity within the title itself. You know what I mean? It just seemed a little bit like it was weird to me how like they would give you a little like snippet of info on like his powers or his origin or whatever, and then you wouldn't hear about it for a while. And then, like it wasn't until the Zero issue, which came out after 24, that really kind of got into his backstory. But even then, that added more questions for me. Like, who are these aliens now? Like I told you about that, right? Like I didn't know like what that was about. And so, apparently I have to read Exo Manowar to find that out. But
or Solar. I mean, because they were the main one of the main big bads across the books.
Well, and so I get the impression that Master Dark is as well, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, he does. Yeah. Very significant later. He's probably one of my favorite villains across all comic books. So Shadowman, I think it's all over the place for a reason. I think for me it's weird because maybe I don't remember where I started with Valiant. I think I started Harbinger, but I think personally why I like Shadowman was it kept me engaged with like a fresh story at each issue. So in a way, I kind of read it like the type of TV shows that were in continuity, and that worked really well for me. And I think it was designed that way. And I always have to imagine like Valiant being a really healthy place for creators, because I felt like a lot of creators pour their hearts out for the books. And I think in a way, when you write and draw, there is something a lot more cohesive about each of these stories that closed the loop for me personally. So that's kind of my memories of reading Shadowman and why I loved it.
Okay.
How about you, Jason? Any thoughts on Shadowman and your?
Well, I think that there's some. As much as I like a cohesive, connected universe, I think that there is something to be said of just reading 21 pages and go, that's a good story. Cool, some cool action, especially after he changed out of his blue jumpsuit into the textbook 90s jacket, right? And the fact that New Orleans is 2 hours away from me, so it's kind of close to home. But so fun stuff. And Bob Hall, who largely a part of all that, is still a frequent con goer. And
really?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that I think you just answered that guy in the chats deal there. He's behind, but he was asking about Stingray. So.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, unfortunately, Stingray's never had his own comic, but I keep hoping. I have plenty of art ready to go to become covers if they decide to do that.
That's true. You already did all the hard work for them.
Right?
So, was there any moments, even though it's all in place, what would be like the top 3 highlights on running, going through the first 24 issues? Was there or questions? Either way, I think maybe that's 2-part question. One is only 3 highlights, and then after that, we'll follow up with 3 questions you may have for us as to why.
I'm trying to think of highlights because I kind of read it kind of fast, so it's all kind of blurring together. I mean, I thought the first issue was a pretty good issue, right? Because it drew me in, it made me want to know more. It was like, he meets the lady and they go back to her place and she gives him the drink and you're like, oh no, don't drink that. This isn't going to end well. And then, she shapeshifts, she bites him on the neck. I'm like, is she a vampire? What's going on? Like I had no clue. And then she's like, oh no, what's that? And she goes off on the balcony and there's a flash of light. And then she just kind of disappears. And then he's left there to wake up the next morning, and I was like, what's going on? Like, I don't, what this is a hell of a origin, but then he just kind of like shook it off. And then he's looking for her and he finds all these bodies in her apartment and they were like gored up. They were bloody and broken apart and just, it was bad. And I was like, what? Is she not a vampire? And then he was just like, you know what? I should call the police, but I should go home first. And then he just like went home and talked to his housekeeper who like, it felt like she was going to be more part of the story, but I couldn't tell what yet. You could just kind of tell. And she totally was. But yeah, I don't know. That first issue was it was weird enough, and it left enough open that I wanted to know more. And then I kept reading it, and I didn't find out more until like issue 0, like 24, 25 issues later. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So 2.
Yeah.
What happened in 2? What happened in 2 after that?
Was 2 was. I'm looking real quick. I'm scrolling through.
When does Unity start, Jason? Do you remember?
It's issue 4. And
pretty early, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super early, and it jumped into it. And so, and it's funny because it was Unity chapters 6 and 14.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, what the hell is this? And like, yeah, like I saw Solar. I'm like, I think that's Solar. Okay, there's Archer and Armstrong. And like, I think in the second part, he gets into a fight with Armstrong or something. But that story was so just like out of left field. And I didn't know that it was going to cross over that early. And just like, time is not absolute, and Mother God, and you know him, the whole thing, because he like fell in love with his guard, who was like, oh, I gotta watch over him because Mother God told me to, because he might be a threat, even though he just saved her life. But you know, so I'm gonna take him back to my place where I can keep a very close eye on him.
Yeah.
Right. I think they fell in love and then they banged, and I'm like, what? You're the worst guard ever.
Well,
maybe that's why I love Shadowman so much. There's so much romance, you know. Like,
weird.
It's well, I mean, like, here's a guy. He's got long hair. He's got the jacket on. They're like, the chicks dig it, right?
And he's got that dark complexion because he's like Creole or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and the spoiler alert, but she disappears after Unity. So his love interest. So he has to go find another one. But yeah.
Well, she showed up again later in Shadowman, because when they did more time jumping stuff, you know.
Right, but yeah, so like in the Unity epilogue or whatever, you know, he's trying to swim back. Mm-hmm. He's trying to swim back to his time, you know, because time's falling apart, and then that's when she disappears. She goes to her time.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I also had another note with you know, Nettie.
That's the housekeeper. Yeah.
I agree, Brian. Like, she's one of my favorite characters, but I also felt like Deadpool totally snagged that with Blind Owl in the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, that's good.
I never even thought of that.
Yeah, they totally snagged that, and I do want to make this kind of like a conversation, because beyond, you know, this very, you know, clear example, often I think we finally touch on this too, Jason. Like the MCU. I think they pulled a lot from Valiant. I'm pretty sure a lot of the writers read Valiant comics because just the way they tied in everything. Because in a way, like, Iron Man's armor didn't behave like Exo's armor in the comics. It was like an armor, but over time it became this kind of, remember, like exoskeleton thing,
right?
Alive, right? Thor, I always felt like, you know, was fish out of water. I don't remember him being fish out of water, but the movie really took that whole Visigoth fish out of water story, land on Earth, and made and owned it as Thor. So I felt like there was for sure a lot of the folks that read that wrote the movies or contributed to it, they definitely read like the Valiant comics and for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point about Blind Owl. Yeah, so yeah, she acts as his kind of direction. You mentioned him getting bit by the spider alien. You know, I feel like that was like one of those things that they dropped at some point, because if my memory serves me correctly, and Brian, feel free to correct me in the chat, but my memory serves me correctly, they said that the Shadowman power works differently because of the spider bite. Like,
yeah.
Basically, it kind of messed it up or made it go wonky. And so
I think they said it was like subdued it or something, because otherwise Master Dark would have come for him sooner and would have been able to use him and abuse him more or something like that.
But by and large, like, especially the longer you go, like that spider thing is like, yeah, okay, it happened, you know, I guess. But
right. Well, it's funny because, you know, reading it, I assumed that was the source of his change and becoming Shadowman, but you know, as you keep reading it, you know, you find out that no, it's more voodoo stuff than alien stuff. But you know, that's one of those things that it takes it a little while to get there to really bring that to the fore, you know.
Yeah. So it's basically like a brother voodoo, but dressed in cooler duds and more action, you know. He never gets to that Sorcerer Supreme level,
No,
you know. But
no, so that's another thing, right? Is like they never really his power set was kind of unclear. Like, what does he actually do other than at nighttime he gets this devil may care attitude,
right?
You know, like he at one point it was like if he believed hard enough, he got super strength, but only sometimes, you know. And then that wasn't until like halfway through the stuff that I read, you know. And then, you know, like Nettie came in and explained it a little bit, and I think that's, you know, like they tied that back, like, oh well, you should be able to do that all the time, but you got bit by an alien vampire lady, you know. So
yeah, it did mess with his power set, and that's what I was saying with Dinesh had mentioned it to me, is that, you know, it's, you know, that's why they kind of expanded on his lore and the whole Loa thing, which is something that you'll find out if you read.
Well, and I like the voodoo connection. I thought that was cool. When you get into some of the later issues and they kind of hint that Nettie might actually be Marie Laveau, like an actual historical figure who's like the queen of voodoo or something in New Orleans. I thought that was kind of a cool call out, you know.
That's cool. I like how they did that too.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that was intentional. I think, you know, back then, I know Shooter, I always just imagine like the Valiant, you know, studio having stuff all over the wall, and like Jim would like have this world design that ties everything in, and he would send everyone off like a writer's room to do what they do, right?
Maybe.
And so I wonder, with all these little like unresolved things, were things that were eventually going to lead to something bigger. I mean, for example, the little alien spider, you know, Lady of the Night that he meets on, you know, issue 1. When she disappears, I don't remember. Jason, you might have better memory of this, but it does kind of resolve and is explained like in Harbinger, right? Or Exo 4 maybe, right? Exo 4, where Harbinger and Exo is there, and then that's what kind of caused whatever was happening there, right? The disappearance.
That's right. Yeah. So it went. Yeah. So basically, you know, like Brian was pointing out, Shooter and them might have had an overall idea, but then Shooter left like fairly early after that. So then they're like, okay, where do we go from here? So that's probably what led to some of the changes as well. But yeah, so if you read the VH1 version of Exo, you'll find out that behind the scenes, the spider aliens have been pulling the strings for thousands of years.
Okay.
And so they, if you remember the show V, The Final Battle?
The lizard people?
Yeah. Okay, so it's kind of like that, because they can genetically make some of the spider aliens look more human than what they are, and then and so you'll see them through all of the like hardcore, Exo especially, Solar especially. You'll see them throughout there, but they're even into the future because they're in Rye and Magnus, the robot fighter. So
yeah, they're kind of everywhere. They're definitely like the major antagonist population that goes against all the heroes. And what's kind of cool too is they didn't stop by just having like aliens who shapeshift. They like really got into like the lore of like these like spider aliens, where there's different levels of technology. There's different, you know, kind of I won't break into it, but since you're about to get into like the next title, like I think you'll find out all about it. So
let me ask you this real quick. Are those the same aliens that kidnap Exo in number 0?
Yes.
Okay. I have read Exo number 0, but that's as far as I've gotten.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's their armor.
Stingray there at 0, because I want that to be fresh for our next time.
Yeah. Carl is conducting what I read. He's giving.
So that was kind of the deal why they had this big beef with Exo, was because he stole their holy armor. Because you have the Exo armor, and then what was the other armor called? It was like the step down. Remember, Rye's wife had one.
Yeah, Exo. Wait, something. All right,
but it's not a Man of War. It's the other one.
Yeah, we need some help. What's the other armor? It's the red and silver armor.
Yeah. So you had that, but yeah, the Exo was the big bad, and that's what, you know. And so when he was kidnapped on that ship, you know, and got it, which led to everything else, which fast forwarding, not to spoil too much, but fast forwarding into the Robert Venditti run of Exo Manowar, how they take and shape Eric's relationship with the spider aliens is a much different take. And it's really good. I really like the way they done it.
Okay.
But I mean, they're still the big bad, but you find out like the whole nation is not bad. Some politicians might take some notes from it. But anyway, it's one of those kind of advances in the storyline, which was great.
Okay.
So I think we're on this VH1 journey, and it's kind of cool. I think it'll be cool for us to dive in through the eyes of Stingray. But I still can't find this other armor name and what it is. Lower level Exo armor.
Well, while you're looking for that, Carl, I'll say I think another highlight for me for the book was honestly the art overall. I thought the art was great. Even from the first issue, I was like, wow, this looks really cool. And I don't know, you know, like I was saying earlier, like there's clearly a bunch of different artists, but the visual like continuity, they look pretty similar. Like they did a really good job of keeping a very similar style, keeping it looking consistent. And like I don't know if maybe the coloring helped, but I thought the colors were really good in this book, and it seemed to help the consistency a lot. And I don't know, I know these are probably around the right time frame, but and I don't know if it's just the way it looks on the pages, but even in the digital, you kind of get that feeling that it was hand colored. You know,
They were.
Yeah, you can kind of tell, and I think it looks beautiful.
I'm sorry, but that is one of the reasons those colors pop so much is because of how they did the coloring. It's the commando armor, Carl.
Got it. Yeah, I saw that too.
But yeah, so yeah, it is a beautiful color, and I think that probably the continuity with Shadowman overall is probably related back to Bob Hall because he was either writing and drawing the book.
Yeah, he took over at one point. Yeah,
the majority of his time.
We should ask him to see if he could join us on the show one day.
That would be fun. You know, he did tell me why he changed the costume from the blue leotard to the different one. But
why is that?
Because he hated drawing it.
Oh, interesting. Well, it's kind of funny. We're talking about it's almost like he has the same costume as Rogue, except he has a mask.
Right. Well, and so if you when he took over was right about that time that Unity was exiting, which is about the time that he was going to change his costume and stuff. And so Bob was like, yeah, I just don't like drawing it. And so you got a Stingray fan in the chat, you know, so, you know, really just kind of drawing them out, man.
I mean, hey, more power, you know, we need more.
Yeah, the whole coloring thing is the thing. So when it comes to the house style, I totally agree because let's see, color guides, Valiant color guides. Are they colored guides or are they colored pages? I don't remember.
That's a good. They're called color guides. I got. Well, you get there's that's one for the card. That's Scott's right there. Porter side.
But yeah, like even like from the first cover, like you open it up to the first page and it's Jack playing the saxophone with a spotlight on him. You know, it's got the title Jazz. Like it just looked really, really good, I thought.
Yeah, the colors are amazing. They did a great job. Wow, who owns this?
Oh wow.
Wow, this is sick. This is awesome.
So talking about the colors, and what's up? The other Carl is in the chat.
Other Carl.
Oh, Carl.
So, but yeah, so talking about the colors, I just shared an email exchange with JJ Jackson, who was the lead person on that just this week, because I was asking her about some of the ones that she still owns. And so it was just really talking well about how, you know, that the color, I mean, like you think about the solar colors, like when he's fighting Mother God and stuff, how all those colors are just popping.
So
It just
good.
made the story. And, it'd be nice if I could get her on. She seemed real talkative about projects she's currently doing and maybe hitting the con scene, because she's doing fixing to be doing, according to her, a Defiant, which is the
the shooter spin-off of Valiant, right? Defiant.
so she went when Shooter left, she left. So so she is supposed to be doing a Kickstarter with Defiant, fan created thing, and so she might want to talk about that. That'd be nice.
Okay, that'd be cool. But yeah, no, Dan Moeller has so many of these early colors.
Oh, is that the there's the Frank Miller, dude.
That's so sick. Wow. And look at this. Noel, this is like it's literally, it's not just a guide. I think this is the actual color, the published color. So to me, it's almost like the painting to the book, right? Original hand color art for production of Valiant. Yeah, see, makes sense.
Trading card, okay.
Yeah.
So if you put that first set of connecting covers that Frank Miller did, it's the hands that are holding all those characters. That's what you're seeing that yellow as.
Dude, what's so cool is if you look at also the talent, the level of talent that was working on Valiant books. This is a Walt Simonson cover, dude.
Yeah, he did. I think he did one of the covers for the Unity issues in this or something. I forget.
Yeah,
he did all of them. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so Frank Miller did a whole interconnected one, and then so
how many of the Miller covers are there?
8.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool because I felt like not only like story but like visual aesthetics, Valiant does such a good job of like assigning unique aesthetics, like even this whole like energy thing, right? They kind of they obviously Walt interpret it in a little different way than like Barry Windsor and whoever else, but this kind of like energy thing, it's very Valiant. I think it's very unique to Valiant how these energies were being used that I love, that always stood out to me. There's Torok. And there's also Walt. Yeah, Walt as well. Wow, so good.
Yeah, I mean, going back and watching a little bit of the previous episodes you guys had done, like seeing that, there's Walt, obviously Bob Layton was heavily involved, Frank Miller, like there's a lot of big names that were working on this stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. And and the ones that Dinesh would later bring to the V1 stuff, I mean, no slouches either. I mean, you're talking about Matt Kent, I mean, it's writers or artists, Matt Kent, Jeff Lemire, Miko Suayan, the list goes on and on,
The question is, did Dinesh bring any aquatic characters too?
Alas, I think that is something that they're severely lacking,
Yeah, there isn't, right? No. I mean, what was it? Was it our Marines had some like aquatic scenarios?
They went underwater at one issue or so, but they're basically the government's EXO, answer. So
it was pretty cool. Stingray just our Marines themselves, like the human interpretation of the EXO armors.
Oh, did they like backward engineer it or something?
Yeah, basically they got it to fight against EXO. And,
nice.
So then the Marines, Armor Marines, and so they fight the space aliens. They do this whole thing for I think 13 or 14 issues, and then they have a VH2. The Acclaim run has a few issues as well, which the last one being a ghost book to try to find. There's actually a Nintendo 64 game of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, Brian has nearly every page of Armorine Zero. Oh my God.
Some of my Armorine pages are made out to this guy named Brian. That's because I bought them from him.
Brian, did you Jim Calafori? Did you take him out for a few nice wine and dine the guy?
He mentioned that on the show he was on that back in the day he got them for like super dirt cheap, so he picked them up at the right time, but yeah. So any other takeaways from Shadowman or any other questions that you?
So a thing that it happened like 3 or 4 times in the book, and I just thought it was funny. It was kind of cool though. when he would be in a room or somewhere and he wanted more power and he wanted to like intimidate people, there'd be just a hanging bare light bulb, and he'd go up and go and smash it so that it would be in darkness. And then suddenly he was able to beat ass a lot harder. And I was just like, okay, I like that.
But he looked like that kind of a character when they had their costume redo. He looked like that character just like wants to whoop somebody in the back alley.
Oh yeah. Well, there was one where two guys like they were in a bar and they were talking, you know, like hitting on a girl, and they were being real over, you know, excited about it. It was kind of gross. So he followed them into the bathroom, and they were like, yeah, we're going to get some of her, blah, blah, whatever. And he's like, you guys picked the wrong bar to walk into or whatever. And there was just like a bare bulb hanging on a long line so that it was like right here, you know? And he's just like, and just beats their asses. And then they leave and they apologize on their way out. And it was just such a funny scene. I just thought it was great.
Who is Peter? Oh, hey, Peter. Amiati.
Appreciate you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for dropping by. Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, Noel, I actually felt like that may be an answer to one of your earlier questions: is what the heck is his power? That's actually, I actually understood that he's more powerful in the night.
Right.
And so when he kills the light, he just gets jacked, I guess, or gets wild, and I don't know. He has like night vision or something. But
So
okay.
you said get jacked. Is that a pun?
That too. So yeah, I think maybe that's I guess maybe that's a question for Bob later.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, is it the night, the darkness that feeds his character? Because his enemy is Master Dark.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's something that I thought was a little bit confusing. Was Jack has some of his power comes from like necromantic energy, I guess, and that's why Mr. Dark or Master Dark is interested in him. And Master Dark was an interesting character. His motivations and overall plan were a little bit confusing at times. They did have there's the one shot, the special that talks about Master Dark. It's done like a encyclopedia almost. Dark Passages, I think it is.
Yep.
I thought that helped clear a little bit of stuff up, but then it was cool because it showed some of his associates and whatever. I'm like, those weren't in Shadowman. This must be another, you know. And then you read the entry and it's like, oh yeah, this one fought Exo and this one fought Solar, and you know. So I realize I'm going to be seeing a lot more of him.
Oh yeah, he's one of the big bads. The Spider Aliens, him and Harada are like the three.
I haven't encountered Harada yet.
Yeah, the big bads.
You'll meet him for sure. You'll meet him for sure. And actually, if you start at a different point, like Harbinger or whatnot, like you will have been exposed to him early on, right? I think he's one of the earlier villains.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so yeah, he's kind of they're kind of the kingmakers. You have the magic, you have the cosmic, and you have the more mutant kingmakers, right?
Okay.
So yeah, so that he's an interesting play. So yeah, with the necromantic energy. So did you read all the way 40 through 43?
No, this covered the book that I have is up to 24 and then 0.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so then they bring in with 0, they bring in the old Shadowman from the 1800s, which is kind of just adding some backstory to that.
Yeah, he ran into him once prior to that, but then he went back and like actually like got to meet him and see who he was in 0. And I thought that was kind of cool.
Was he like pimp, as I remember, he had like a pimp cane or something, and he didn't wear like a white suit.
Yeah. So he
everything full on pimp.
Well, on the 0 cover, or the advertisement, he had that pimp cane. Is what?
Yeah.
He fights with it too, doesn't he?
I think so.
He might, but he had the bare chested with the emblem on his chest. You know, and when he comes into our time, you know, he's basically comatose. And like he's laying in a bed somewhere, and they're basically just keeping him, you know, washed up because he's been comatose for all these years. And then some events that take place in the universe bring him back.
I'm also curious, you know, kind of the design the design philosophy behind the logo itself, because you know there's been some misunderstandings in how it was interpreted conversations. So,
Oh yeah.
I think someone had brought up that it was like, is it the men's restrooms, man?
Yeah.
You know?
Bathroom man. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I can kind of see that. I thought it was an odd choice. I get it. He's opening a door
Yeah.
and letting the light in, and he's in the dark silhouette because he's in the darkness or whatever. But it was a little bit weird at first.
Yeah. So Shadowman's basic theme, here's a guy that's going to try to be a hero who's using bad guy energy against the bad guys who have the same energy, right? And at some point he runs this deal, as all those kind of stories do, where he's like, okay, you use it too much and you're going to become just like these people that you say that so do the ends justify the means?
Right. And he did seem that he was getting a little bit more brutal toward the end of the stuff that I read, he was starting to hurt people a bit more. And then he was like, whoa, I gotta, when the sun came out, he was like, whoa, what did I just do?
And so what happened between 25 and 43? Does he get way deep and dark, Jason? I mean,
so the was it the Chaos Effect takes place, which is a big necromantic crossover. So it involves him, and so coming out of that, he takes on Exo in one of the issues, which was interesting because how the Exo armor, repelled against his energy. But yeah, he kind of goes back until, of course, you get to 43, where he's like, hey, I'm just going to kind of tempt fate because I know I'm supposed to die in 1999. So that's kind of the other thing with Shadowman, is that from the start, if they're going to hold true to their deal, he's going to die in 1999. So,
and I thought that was kind of a neat hook, right? He kind of played into, he kind of owned that devil may care attitude a little bit more, because he was like, well, I'm gonna die in 5 years anyway. And then there was the one story where he thought he was gonna get beat, and then somebody was like, remember, I forget how they phrase it, remember the date of your death or something like that. And he didn't know what that meant at first. And he's like, wait a minute, I can't die here. I die in 1999. Fuck you, and he ended up winning the day.
I remember that.
I was just like, okay, all right. This is a good strategy.
Well, that tight, continuity storyline, people don't like to work within those confines, because you got to bring people back and forth from the dead, and, people live and die in perpetuity. But, that was kind of the framework from the beginning, as laid out in Rise Zero. But
I mean, they've also got access to magic and time travel. So, I mean,
yeah, and which is an overused trope in my estimation.
Oh, sure.
The multiverse is definitely overused. And so, that's one of the other things with the Valiant universe. It's more of like, hey, this is what it is. They die, they dead. There's no going over here to the multiverse and pulling this person out. There's not an awful lot of time travel as it relates to the majority of the characters. And so it creates stakes in the game. So.
Okay.
I love that about Valiant for sure. I think they did a good job of using time travel by highlighting the different timelines and capturing the stories from the different timelines. So even though a character Rai may die during this timeline, they could reintroduce Rai in the Future Force in another timeline. So that they're not bringing that person back, but they're bringing a different version of that person in a different timeline. So I love that about even Bloodshot, right? Bloodshot's the earliest version of the nanolights and stuff. And so I felt like Valiant did such a great job with that as their infrastructure.
Yeah, and tying Rai together with that he's not, the original Rai that dies in Unity is not full of the blood of heroes, but the one that we all know from Rai in the Future Force, he is. He actually has the blood of heroes in it, which is shown in Rise Zero. But yeah, to tie all those, and they went ahead and went to Magnus's timeline in 4000 AD. So it's far in advance, but Eternal Warrior's still there, and they're still fighting some of the same battles with the spider aliens all those years later. And Solar shows up, or a different version of Solar. So, but yeah, any other takeaways on?
Speaking of Oh,
Go ahead.
for it.
I was just going to say real quick, one issue that I really stood out that I thought was a lot of fun was number 19, the one where he met Aerosmith.
Oh yeah.
They killed Steven Tyler and then brought him back. I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
So is the one I couldn't remember what issue that was where they introduced Dr. Mirage?
Yeah, he was in one issue, and then they did an issue of the second life or whatever of Dr. Mirage as a tie-in was in this too.
Okay, yeah. So the first appearance of Dr. Mirage is in 16. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I definitely read that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot about this. That's cool. So speaking of Unity too, just kind of circling back to the question I had, what was it like reading, the few issues of Unity within this Shadowman line that, from like with no context, because Shadowman plays a very specific role, a very big role in Unity. Congrats, Jason, recently on acquisition, but he plays that role. So what did it feel like reading that coming from Shadowman's perspective?
So they did 2 issues that he was in 2 issues of Unity, and like I said, it was 4 and 16. Like if you look at the whole of the Unity story, and the first one was like issue 4 of Shadowman. So they jumped into it really early, and I'm still trying to figure out like, okay, who is this guy? What exactly are his powers? Are we going to get back to the alien or whatever that bit him? No, we're going to the future, and I mean it kind of, and it was funny because at the end of issue 3, I guess he went to get help from a voodoo man, and the voodoo man says, "I have something to show you." And they get on a boat and they go out in the bayou and they're in the swamp. There's this big tree with these huge roots sticking out of the water, and they're like, "Yeah, you got to go down there." And he swims down there and there's nothing there. And he comes back up and he's like, "There's nothing there." And they're like, "Well, no, duh, you connect best to the powers and whatever in the portal at night. You're Shadowman, And he's like, so they wait for dark, and then he swims down there again, and there's this portal, and and he disappears into the future, and then so you go to the next issue, and it's like, what, Mother God, what is going? And then all of the other heroes are there, and it's like, what's going on? Why is he like? It was just it kind of pulled me out of the Shadowman. But then I got caught up in the Unity, and then after a second issue, he's just gone. He went back home, and he swims out of the tree. And he's like, they're like, "Oh, are you okay? You've been down there for like an hour." He's like, "An hour? I was gone for like a whole week." And it was just, it was wild. I'll put it that way. It was a wild ride.
You got some ass.
Yes, definitely.
I feel like the sexiness of Shadowman was something that I gravitated to because I spent my 20s in the nightlife scene. That's like my business, and I feel like when I think about Shadowman, being at the bar.
Were you hanging out in a lot of jazz clubs?
I didn't until my bachelor party. So
nice.
I did my bachelor party in New Orleans, and I remember I thought about Shadowman all the time, every jazz club I walked into, and so I think nostalgia wise, it set some sort of like imprint in my heart.
Well, that's cool.
There's a Shadowman Day. In New Orleans. Yeah. And so, and then one of the Shadowman issues has vampires in it, and it's an Anne Rice because she's a big author from that area rather. And so, January 17th.
Oh wow!
Proclaimed Shadowman Day.
That's kind of cool.
How many other characters can say they got their own day?
I don't know. That's wild.
I had no idea. Have you ever visited New Orleans during this day? I wonder what the heck they're doing.
I've never been there on that day. New Orleans
is
2 hours away from me, so it's an easy train.
1993, so it's been about 31 years. So I wonder if it's still active. I'm super curious.
I wonder how many people dress up like Shadowman.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. We should go down there for Shadowman Day, Carl.
Let's do it. Field trip.
Yeah.
It's a little pre-OAX.
Yeah, that's a little too close.
But
it would be fun.
Yeah. All right. I mean, so no, thanks for giving us your TLDR to Shadowman.
Yeah,
How
yeah, for
do you
sure.
feel? I mean, I know it's a little wonky adventure. I know that there's some confusion in the process, but
Yeah,
what
but
what
it was
kind
still
of
fun
feeling?
though, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Does it make you want to read more? Like with these
I mean,
questions, did it help you answer some of these questions today?
I would definitely like to read the rest of Shadowman. I think there's, it's less than 20 more issues, so I think it would be worthwhile to read it. I just don't know the easiest way to do that right now. I'll hunt them down or something. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to reading the next thing to kind of explore a little bit to make more sense of Unity, to make more sense of some of the other characters. So I don't know if I can't remember if we said it or not, but I'm going to do XO next because I have another one of those omnibuses that I got for free for the digital. So that's the next one I'm going to read. So that's got like 20 something issues in there. I read number 0 already. So that was pretty cool. I had no idea I was going to get some Casada Palmiotti art right off the bat, and that was sweet.
So sweet.
So I'm looking forward to reading that one. And then obviously I think the next one after that will be the Archer and Armstrong, because I should have that one in hand by then.
Yeah.
I can read that one physically.
Yeah, I think what's going to be really cool is you're going to get little pieces of Unity, and then all the different pieces of the puzzle was going to start coming together. And I'm excited for you.
Yeah, so EXO, I was just looking at my CLZ app because I have all these single issues.
Right.
So you said it goes through what issue in EXO?
Hold on. Let me look real quick. Come on.
Because you got a lot of first going on with that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So of course you got EXO. You got Harbinger's first appearances in issue 4, the Harbinger kids. Then you've got the battle between Axe and Exo Manowar. Axe is a character that you'll see some in Harbinger. Actually plays a key in Bloodshot's death.
Oh, wow.
You have the Unity crossover. You got Solar. You got Bart Sears art with him and Turok.
Oh, right. Oh. This goes up to XO 30. And apparently it has Armorines number 0 in it as well.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So you got the first appearance of Armorines in there too. So
yeah. So how many issues of EXO was there? Do you know?
Yeah. So the first one is 68.
Okay, so this is just shy of half. Okay.
Yeah, it gets very wonky at the end. Ron Mars, I loved him in Silver Surfer, loved him in Green Lantern. I did not like what he was doing with the Exo armor, but at some point, Bart Sears comes back, and he's doing some of those latter issues. Andy Smith draws a lot like Bart Sears, and he was on some of those latter issues too. Thiago, there's always the rewind button. Appreciate you for showing up.
And then just as a tease, the next one, the other one that I have digital, so maybe after Archer and Armstrong, I have Ninjak.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Ninjak, I think, also did really well during VE1, right? Like the reboot was pretty strong. I remember.
Oh yeah, you had some top tier talent on it, and basically you think about a James Bond, Ninja James Bond, right?
Oh, that's cool.
And so gets all the ladies. He's a ninja, and then you got the first 3 issues to include 0 that are done by Casada and Palmiotti.
I just noticed that the cover was Casada again, so that's cool. I'm looking forward to that.
The cover for issue 0 sold not too long ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know Nick Barucci took a swipe at it, but somebody else got it.
No, talking about Ninja cover. Yeah, I had a discussion with Jimmy about it before it went to.
Okay.
And I kind of wish I pulled the trigger, but I don't know what happened.
What kind of Valiant fan are you?
Dude, it was one of the rare occasions where I asked my wife what she thought, and then she said, "Oh, I hate it." And then for some reason, it put a little weird thing in my chest. And I was like, "Oh, darn!" It's like the feet looks weird. I was like, "Oh yeah, the feet does look kind of weird." But then after I said no, I literally felt like, oh, I should have went for it still. And
so Stingray, if you look at Carl's calf gallery and see like some of the banger Valiant stuff he's got, like you're like, you don't, he didn't say no to this stuff.
I know. I think I had less nostalgia to Ninja.
Okay, because he did come a little bit later.
He did come
okay.
later, and I think I just wasn't as connected to the character, and I think that's why. But I really should have pulled triggers. Well,
And just because I have it on here, they also had the digital, the Quantum and Woody of the Acclaim stuff. So I'm gonna go reread that at some point too, because that was good stuff.
Yeah, so Ninjak was first appeared in I think Bloodshot 6.
Okay.
So Bloodshot didn't come until after Unity also. So
Okay.
I think I got a game plan. I think what we're gonna do is VH1, with Noel through the process, and then once he passes that, we'll jump to like V1, and I'll start reading too for the first time, and then we'll start responding on it. That'd be pretty fun because for me, I want a fresh take on all that as well because I never really dove into that.
Well, so let me ask you real quick with the OG stuff. What was the first book? What started Valiant?
The Solar, right?
Was it?
Solar.
Okay.
Solar. With Magnus,
Solar or Magnus, one of the two.
Yeah, one of those. And then what was the first kind of original spin-off?
It's going to be one of those two.
RPG.
Exo is probably the first
Original spin-off.
Title. But because that's what launched the universe. And so then Turok, who is also a Gold Key character, didn't appear till several issues into Magnus, the robot fighter. Yeah.
So when you said the Gold Key, because it was him and Magnus, and there was one other one, right?
Turok, Solar, and Magnus. Those were the three.
Solar was okay. Yeah. Okay.
So in a way, there's a lot of history of those three. So like how
when you say that they're Gold Key, like how old were they? Like when did they originate?
Silver Age.
Really? Okay. Wow.
So.
Huh.
Yeah. So they're much older characters. So they.
Did they kind of bring any of their history with them to Valiant, or did they just kind of do a?
Yes, no. So Magnus is the first cover date May 1991.
Oh wow!
Solar was September of 91. So they were the first ones that kind of launched the deal. So basically, you have Solar in current time, you have Magnus in future time, and so when you read Unity, you figure out how Magnus is tied to the present. But to not jumping right in,
it's okay, Carl. I like pain.
Carl.
Hey, Carl, you could say that he dove into the deep end.
Yeah.
But
and it stings.
But yeah, so Solar in the first few issues of Solar, it tells his backstory, and he kind of plays on being a comic book character. And then he kills the other version. So then the real version of Solar exists inside the Valiant continuity. And basically he wants to, right some of the wrong he did by destroying other universes, which kind of plays into Unity because Mother God has the same powers basically as what Solar does. So he's trying to keep her from destroying all time. And so especially in that last issue where he pulls everything out of the black hole or the wormhole. So
am I going to learn more about Mother God in Exo?
No, but you will in the early issues of Solar.
Okay.
Well, so except for the 2 crossover issues. That's
yeah.
Because she comes to Exo and she tries to steal his armor, and I won't tell you what happened to him as a result of that. But
no spoilers yet. We'll let you catch up. But with that said, I think we should maybe, speaking of Unity, talk about this our show and tell part of the show. I think Noel, hopefully you could contribute to the future parts of this. But I'll go first this week, if that's okay. All right. So I think I know what you got. So I'm gonna just kind of I pulled a few pieces specifically for today because I didn't have a lot of new art. I do have one piece that's new. This is actually, I think, one of my first Unity interiors, and this is from Ixo Man of War #8. So, you're gonna see this as you dive into it.
Wow!
Yeah, this was very memorable to me because I remember when Ixo had just gotten his throne, and I think he was just negotiating, right? Because he was like, "This is like my kingdom," kind of thing. But
what issue is that from?
#8. So Ixo number 8.
Okay, cool.
Get here. So this is a really fun piece that I got, and yeah, these are kind of little moments that I just remember from reading them early on. And then I looked into what Shadowman art I had.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so I have a few things that's not quite Shadowman. I didn't realize I didn't have much. I have one piece that is really cool. These are actually from Dr. Mirage. So this is from issue number 2, and it's really just Master Dark, like over here, and he's like,
yeah.
raising the dead kind of thing.
Okay.
And I just really love this composition of Bernard. I think Bernard Chang that drew it. And then this is also another Dr. Mirage where Shadowman's in it. So I don't actually remember.
I like that page a lot. That's cool.
The splash, yeah. It was actually one of my very, very early comic art collection from like 2017, 18.
Oh, wow.
One of the first Valiant pieces I bought. And it's because Bernard was the first guy that I ever bought comic art from. And so I was like, oh, what's the Valiant, Bernard stuff I could get? And that was on the first page on eBay. The one I really love is actually one of my favorite covers from Shadowman. And it's from issue number 13. So
that's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, I really love this one. How do you pronounce his name, Jason? Yeah.
Don't get me to butchering it. So
yeah, I know it's Randy Elliott with the inks, but something. I never know how to pronounce his name. But I really love this though. I only remember the standalone story. But it's the
you said that was number 13?
13, yeah. It's the dude who is, in a theater, and he basically is like a serial killer, and then Shadowman goes and hunts him down. But this was one of my favorite standalone stories, and so I felt like I had to grab this one. So this is,
that was a good one.
Yeah. So that's my show and tell this week. So some kind of Shadowman nostalgia, and my first interior of Unity with Exo.
No, that's cool.
All right. So this is from Rye number 4. So the first appearance of Rye was a flip book with Magnus. So he introduces Rye. So this is prior to Unity. I think,
Carl, you had that one on one of the earlier episodes, right? The flip book? I think so.
Yeah, you showed it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is, and we mentioned about the spider aliens. You'll notice that they're spiting the spider aliens here.
Yeah. Cool.
And Japan is a giant dragon that's being attacked by the spider aliens. And spoiler, Mother God tries to use his people, Rye's people, as a way to get him out of the war because she's so scared of him. So anyway, so there's that one. And
you've been going hard, so I'm excited to even have people see what you've been getting.
So this was kind of timely, and you'll recognize this scene.
Yep.
So, and this is what I was talking about, the colors. Like, I usually like black and white art, but like this is something that's lost without the colors being on here.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, God.
Because you can tell, the action taking place just by, all the hits and stuff. And so you see a little Shadowman over there going, what should I do? I got to save her.
What in the hell?
Such a moment. Yeah, and I wonder if he was just trying to get some ass too by saving her.
He might have, He was too busy giving it to her son.
You're like, damn, what's that girl wearing? I better save her.
Well, and really, so, there's some of the issues, depending on the artist, where it's a little more provocative than it is in other ones. And you're like, my goodness, what were these guys thinking? But they knew what to get, horny kids, they knew what to
right.
do. But actually on the page after this also, and and so this is where, and so Shadowman actually attacks Solar.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of leans back to what we were talking about earlier, is what is Shadowman's powers that he can take on Solar?
Right.
And that Solar mentions, I felt that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Does Solar have any kind of weakness or anything to necromantic energy or something like that? Maybe
so.
Okay.
Dude, this is such a banger page. When you show me, I'm so happy for you because I totally remember this.
Are those dark spots like glue or something where the word balloons fell off? Okay.
Well, no, the balloons are all still there actually, but the glue does stain it.
Gotcha.
And so if I can keep it, I like to keep the word balloons on there, even though if they're stained.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's kind of a timely piece that came in this week for me as well.
Here's something that fell off that page, and the guy who sold the page to me, he actually wrote a little note that said he likes to take it off because it gets yellow or something like that. So I guess there's a lot of these stick-ups back in the day.
Yeah. Well, as they were just kind of crafting, I mean, that's how they corrected a lot of errors, right? But like that Harbinger page that I showed you, where fantastic page, but only one of them actually made the cut, and it's the bottom panel where Solar and Mother God are fighting in the end, and it's actually the first panel of the next page. And so, as they were crafting everything together, like, yeah, let's take this out, let's add this, and move this around. So, whereas now you just do it digitally.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man. Congrats on those pickups, man. Those are straight bangers this week.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so I mean that's kind of wraps up our show. We went through all our different chapters, and episode 4 is down. And yeah, thanks for everyone tuning in. I think the next time we'll have you guys will see Stingray. He'll be all caught up with Exo Man of War, and that will be the cover.
That's the plan. Well, at least the first half of the series, right?
Yes, first half. Jason, anything else we got to cover before we wrap up tonight's show?
No, I think the other Carl mentioned it as well, but congrats to somebody to diving in to in this point age-old comics. It's hard to believe that the 90s were so long ago, but there's a few years between us, right?
Hush, other Carl.
Here it goes. he might be tempted to participate in the show and tell next time he's here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to show off stuff. I just don't have any cool Valiant art like you guys.
Yet.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I looked on Anthony's site earlier before we got on here just to see. There's a lot of stuff on there, and it's all kind of cheap. I don't know.
It's not expensive. Like you can probably get some stuff like for pretty good prices.
Yeah, there's no Shadowman though, so.
Yeah, the Shadowman pages seem to be a little bit harder to come by than what some of the other stuff. Anthony's got some Exo pages. I keep thinking about putting an issue back together because I've got a lot of those pages already from that issue.
Okay.
But yeah, so some of the stuff that's after Unity, you can get pretty decently. And that's the other fun thing, because I'm more of a story collector as it relates to my art.
Sure.
And so not as big of a cover collector. So, and Valiant's big on stories. And so it makes a lot of sense. Yes, that is true. Even little bitty pages, even little bitty little correction strips, Marcus, can be really expensive. So
Jason got you covered, Marcus. There you go. Boom.
First appearance of Ivar the Time Walker. So
sick. Awesome. So, I mean, that concludes it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We tried to wrap this up before Cap Live. I know there's like a dueling dealer tonight. So everyone who is here, let's tune our channels to Comic Art Live. And then Jason and Noel, we got to stay on until we upload our videos. But otherwise, good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Adios.